I told you so. I warned you. You wouldn't listen. Ursula von der Leyen is now in serious trouble. She is the Commissioner of the European Union, and she is the one who just this month has introduced a new tariff specifically aimed against stopping the Chinese subsidising their industries, their EV industry, even though Europe subsidises its EV industry and its petrol industry. And I said, this is going to have repercussions. And boy, has China retaliated. This is stunning. And this is so much bigger than I actually anticipated. And this is going to devastate Europe. I'm Dave. Welcome to Dave Takes It On. Greetings, Titans. For those of you who watch regularly, you will know that I've been saying for a long time, well over a year, tariffs are not the way forward. This is a warning to America, it's a warning to Europe. Tariffs are not the way forward. Tariffs can be used very short term to get you up to speed to match others. That's all they can ever be used for. And the reason you can't use them long term is because the world today is totally interleaved, interrelated, interconnected into absolutely everything. Nobody these days makes a product that is 100% any one country. So you have in America, they're trying to encourage people, Europeans, to make 100% American motors. But these have silicon chips in it. They're made, I don't know, Vietnam, Malaysia, Japan, using lithium from China, using cobalt from Democratic Republic of Congo. The idea of having anyone who can make start to finish a product in a country, it isn't there today anyhow. So what you find is that if you have a thriving export industry and you want to stop another country, in this case China, undercutting your prices and selling EVs into Europe, then you can put a tariff on. You can force them to charge more for their cars, so it brings them up to date. But the big challenge here is that Europe also exports other things, including EVs and petrol cars, ICE cars, to China. So guess what? When Europe imposed the tariff just this month on the Chinese, and it means that some of and this is a varying tariff. This is a weird situation. You have a general 10% tariff on anything that you import into Europe. That's standard. That's World Trade Agreement. Why? The tariff on top of that for the Chinese EVs coming into Europe is anything up to 50%. This is a staggering sum of money, and it's really designed to stop the Chinese dumping cheap cars into Europe. Okay, Europe sells EVs and ICE cars into China, and I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but there are no import tariffs of selling EVs or ICE cars into China. None at all. So if Citroën sells an EV into China, it pays no tariffs, none at all. If Mercedes sell a petrol car or Porsche sells a high-performance car into China, they pay no tariffs, none at all. And it's a thriving market. China is the biggest motoring market in the whole world. And the likes of Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, they know this, and they had a thriving business selling cars into China. Well, first of all, the ICE market is dropping off like a brick off the end of a cliff at the moment. So that market is already dying on its own. But of course, what China's now started to do is say, right, well, if you're going to put a tariff on us, we could do the same to you. But doesn't have a lot of bite. So what the Chinese have actually done is absolutely devastating. To get over the tariffs of Chinese cars coming into the EU, having to pay the tariff and then charging extra, people like Italy with Fiat and Alfa Romeo, people like Stellantis, they've been entering into deals with China where they invite a Chinese company to come into Europe, build a factory, and then supply the parts and actually assemble them in Europe and sell them to European customers. And that really gets round these tariffs. So you've got to think a tariff that you can just get round by changing your factory is, well, it's not much of a tariff, is it? Anyway, what's happened is far worse, because let's go and just pick one particular one, Stellantis. They've bought up 50% of a Chinese company. It's a company called Leap Motor. It was advertising big time at the Paris Motor Show with the T03 and the B10 and the C10. These are stunning models. The T03 is about 16,000 euros, really cheap car. The B10 and C10, they're bigger cars, but they're much, much cheaper than the Citroen, than Tesla Model 3 or Model Y. They're real genuine competitors. And because Stellantis owns half of Leap Motors, it's classed as European, and so they can sell them into Europe without any tariffs at all. So Stellantis, everyone else, Ford do this, General Motors do this, Stellantis do this, Citroen do this, Fiat do this, governments do this. They've been buying up and investing money into Chinese companies. BYD is now going into Mexico and into America. It's happening all over the world. China this week has just said, we're going to stop all that. All of these joint ventures, all of these factories will not now go ahead. You can't build the factories. All the Chinese manufacturers who were going to build the factories must stop now. Wow! So Stellantis, to take one example, they've just spent billions buying up half of Leap Motors. They've set aside a factory in Poland where they're going to assemble these cars, and the Chinese government has now just says, you can't operate them, you can't send your cars into this factory. Stellantis have virtually gone bust in doing this, and now they can't use it, and you can't buy cheap cars. This is absolutely mammoth. This is huge. There's a huge amount of investment gone into these joint ventures all over the world. The Italian government has paid a vast amount of money to China, invited them into Italy to build factories there, working with Fiat and Alfa Romeo and others, so that they can restore their motor industry, which was once one of the proud ones in the whole of Europe. The Italian government now can't do it because the Chinese government has said, no, you might have signed a deal, but we're not allowing you to build that factory. We're not allowing you to ship abroad to export the components or the people or the machinery or the equipment that's needed to get these factories going. This is absolutely huge. So where we're going to go, we don't know. It gets a little bit worse. Well, no, it gets a massive amount worse than that. The Chinese have virtually gone EV. They got so many incentives from the government. This is what Europe's fighting against. They get so many subsidies, so many tax breaks and everything else, that it's actually a no-brainer to buy an EV over there nowadays. They're cheaper to buy, cheaper to register, cheaper to run. Everything's cheaper with them. So the Chinese have effectively stopped buying ICE cars. They used at one time to be a status symbol. You would be looked up to if you drove down a Chinese street in your Mercedes S-Class or your BMW 5 Series or what. People would look up to you. If you wanted a performance car, you would buy a Ferrari or a Porsche or a Lamborghini, and people would look up to you. And what the Chinese have done now with their EVs, they're actually making cars that are bigger, better, faster. So at one time, if you had a Lamborghini, that was the fastest car on the road. Some of the Chinese EV manufacturers are now making EV saloon cars that are like $30,000, $40,000 that are faster than a Lamborghini. And so all of a sudden, when you're driving a Lamborghini, you're looked at as your history. It's antiquated, it's out of date. Technology's moved on, people have moved on, society's moved on. And so what's happening is, in addition to not being able to build the factories, making these good cars, China has recognized that an awful lot of European manufacturers, doesn't apply much to America. America doesn't export that much in the way of cars directly into China. It never did. But Europe certainly did with the Mercedes, the BMWs, the Volkswagens, the Audis, the Porsches, etc., etc. What the Chinese have now said is, yeah, if you want to sell those, carry on, but we're now going to impose a tariff on those as well, and that all could be up to 50%. The market's already dying. People just aren't buying the Lamborghinis, the Porsches, the Mercedes, the Audis, because they're not buying ICE cars of any sort. And now they're saying that you're going to have to put a tariff on them. And this is absolutely throwing a cat amongst the pigeons because what? Ursula von der Leyen decided to put tariffs on Chinese cars, and she now has effectively destroyed the entire European motor industry if she doesn't back down. And what are the chances of her backing down? I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. This is Europe, this is the bureaucracy, people deciding what they want. When you look at the vote that the member countries took, whether to adopt these Chinese tariffs or not, a small percentage of countries actually wanted this in the first place. But it's been forced through by the European Commission, and now it's in force. It will be applied. Everyone importing vehicles or exporting from their home country, importing them into Europe, will now have to start, in China will now have to start paying massive tariffs on them. It's going to stifle EV growth, because I did a report recently on the Paris Motor Show, and one of the highlights I picked out, this was just a week ago, was that there were so many budget cars coming in under 20,000 euros. A massive amount in the 20 to 25,000 and a huge number in the 25 to 30,000. The sad thing is, about half of those were pure Chinese, and they've gone. If the Chinese do what they say, and if Ursula von der Leyen doesn't cancel the tariffs, those cars are never going to arrive, ever. And you're going to be left with some companies, all credit to Renault, for example. They do tend to make their own batteries, but everyone now is going to be scrabbling around. Stellantis just spent billions buying up half a Leapmotor. What are they going to do? Americans, Ford have just bought factories over there, joint ventures all over the place. They're all now scrapped if China goes through with this. And anything they already sell, which is nothing to do with EVs, which is the petrol cars, they're now going to have a tariff imposed on them. This is so predictable. I told you so. I told you so. Why won't people listen? And by the way, you viewers, if you do like this, what you'll find is I do this all the time. I will look ahead and look at things that might be happening, and a lot of them do happen. And I'm one of the ones who sees it first. So if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. We can notify when we do launch videos, and you can have a look to see whether you want to see each of these that we launch. Some of them are actual blockbusters, and this is one of them. This was just a week ago. I did a full report on the Paris Motor Show, and I said, with all the Chinese coming in, selling between 15 and 30,000 euros, this is going to absolutely boom the market throughout the whole of Europe, get it up to where we are in the UK and get it beyond that. And just a week later, I did warn in that same video, don't do the tariffs, they're going to kill you, they're going to harm you. We've got there. So anyhow, that's it for now. So thank you very much for watching. As I say, if you have enjoyed it, please click the like button. If you want to leave your comments, I do try to read through all the comments. We see as many as we can, but we get so many, it's not always possible to see them all, let alone answer them. So we do scan through them on a regular basis. Once again, I know a lot of you aren't yet subscribers. You watch the channel regularly. We can see that from the data we get from YouTube, but you've not yet subscribed. Makes no difference to you. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a click of a button. Please click that button because it makes a huge difference to us as a small young channel. And a massive thank you, as always, to our Patreon members. You provide massive support for the channel, which allows us to go and do these sort of videos and do the necessary research to be able to make them interesting and accurate. So thanks very much. I'm Dave.